Hello, folks. This is Fred Goodwin, and we're in the midst of walking in his steps. Today, I want to give you another glimpse into my life and the journey of my faith, so that you, again, will see me not just as a stranger, but as someone you may know or want to know, and trust believing that I've had some experiences in my life that help others to understand the nature of God. Specifically, what I'd like to share with you today is my own wake-up call. We could call it a divine wake-up call. Now, many people grow in the Lord through slow, gradual steps. For me, it was not that. Though I was raised in the church, my experience of a vibrant walk with the Lord was dramatic. And it started when I was in my early 20s, stationed in the Navy in VS-37, flying carrier-based aircraft. This is a model, of course. These planes aren't in the Navy arsenal anymore, but they're called S-3s. We were the last squadron to get our newly delivered aircraft. It was a crew of 4, a pilot and co-pilot in the front. This was my little window, the Naval Flight Officer, Tactical Coordinator. And then on the other side, sitting next to me, was the enlisted sensor operator. He processed the data with me in the back with the computers, and we determined what we were observing, listening to, and so on. Our primary mission, although we had many features and abilities in this aircraft, out the bottom of the plane, we dropped lengthy, what's called sonobuoys. They were, the equivalent of a large tube, maybe 4 feet long, that had listening devices in it. We shot them out of our plane into the water. They went into the water, dropped a hydrophone to listen, and then it transmitted back to us the sounds that were in the water, and we would process that information and determine if there was anything worth noting. And yes, we heard whales, and yes, we heard sea creatures all the time, but we were specifically looking for frequencies of Soviet submarines. And that was our job. On one particular day, we were ordered to fly about 300 to 400 miles off the coast of Southern California, because it was believed that there was a Soviet nuclear submarine off the coast, and we were to track it. You can probably imagine in that day, that was during the Cold War, that was very significant. So we're out there dropping our sonobuoys, listening, and we believe we've found the submarine, when all of a sudden a sound went off that was frightening to the bone. It sounded like someone shot off a shotgun inside the cockpit. And I leaned forward to see what was going on and noticed our entire windshield was cracked. The next words I heard were among the most significant I've ever heard and will never forget. The pilot, my friend, said, "Fred, if this glass implodes, get you and the Senso out." That is, he was concerned that if the glass came at us, then he and the co-pilot would probably die before they could eject. And he was giving me permission to eject myself and the man next to me out of the aircraft in the hopes we could save our lives. Needless to say, information about that Soviet submarine was no longer relevant. All we wanted to do was live and get back to our base. So we began climbing to high altitude where the air is lighter, in the hopes that the glass would not come in on us. Our hands immediately went to the ejection ring that was over our heads that we could eject if that glass came in. And I began calling out on the radio, "Mayday, Mayday." Unfortunately, we're so far out to sea, over the horizon, where our radio was not communicating to the shore, that no one heard us for a long time. We checked the radar, and there were no ships in sight. We recognized we were over shark-infested waters, and our survival rate for that particular aircraft was not all that good if we had to go through the ejection. So we recognized this was a very serious matter. As I continued to cry out, "Mayday, Mayday," and as the pilot continued to fly us up to higher altitude, and we headed back east. Eventually, as we got closer to the coast, I heard a wonderful voice. It was actually an air traffic controller from the tower of the LA airport. And he said, "Yes, sir, we've got you. "What's your request?" And I replied, "Sir, we just want to get home." He gave us vectors, passed us off to flight control, who tracked us the rest of the way until we got back to our base at North Island in San Diego. It was a long ride. But eventually our hands came off the primary ejection harness above our heads, and one hand dropped to our secondary ejection harness that was right between the legs, a little D-ring it was called. And it allowed me an opportunity to slip past the torso harness, that which was attached to the parachute, open up the zipper of one of the pockets in my flight suit, and pull out a little bitty Gideon Bible. It was one that I'd been given as a graduate of the Naval Academy. I hadn't actually read this particular book, although I was familiar with a lot of the stories in the Bible. It was a little pocket book of the New Testament and Psalms. And I opened up that little book and remembered enough of my childhood to realize that I needed to read Psalm 23. And as I'm sitting there wondering if I'm going to live through the day with my hand on the ejection harness, I read, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." At that particular moment, I recognized that the next face I saw might actually be Jesus. And I knew in my soul I was not ready for that encounter. That was my wake-up call. Standing at what I thought was the threshold of possible death, realizing Jesus may indeed be standing in front of me within moments. And for some reason, I knew, though I'd been raised in the church, though I knew a lot of the Bible stories, I knew I wasn't ready. That got me going when we got back onto a journey of discovery and eventually surrendering my life to the Lord, receiving His Holy Spirit, and accepting the call to serve Him full time. I share that story with you to encourage you. The Lord is real. His word is true. And He really loves us so much that He wants us home with Him. And He wants us to live a life for Him and not for us. In a later video, I'm going to take time to walk you through Psalm 23 and what I discovered by that most popular psalm. And sadly, how popular it is, but how few people really understand what it says. But I want to encourage you. And by the way, when we got back home, we were told the next day that what had actually cracked was, I believe it was called the polymer coating on the outside of the glass. That had cracked. The glass actually never had. But though it was a new aircraft and we didn't know that, from our view on the inside, we looked like life was perhaps a very short. God can do that, can He? He can use circumstances and situations in our lives to really challenge us and wake us up. That was my wake-up call. I hope it encourages you. God bless you.